Ezekiel, go to the book of Amos. Amos chapter number 9. You're there in Ezekiel. You're going to go past the book of Daniel, past the book of Hosea, past the book of Joel, into the book of Amos. Amos is one of those minor prophets. You've got Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos. Amos chapter number 9. Look at verse number 2. Amos chapter number 9 and verse number 2. Notice what the Bible says. Amos chapter 9 and verse 2. The Bible says, I want you to notice, though they dig into hell. Do you see that? God says you can dig into hell. You say, why? Because it's underground. Because it's beneath. Because it's in the heart of the earth. Because it's in the nether parts of the earth. He says, though they dig into hell, then shall mine hand take them. Though they climb up to the heavens, thence will I bring them down. Go to Deuteronomy chapter number 32. Deuteronomy chapter number 32. You got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 32. Look at verse 22. Deuteronomy 32 and verse number 22. Notice what the Bible says. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 22. Deuteronomy 32, 22. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, and shall burn unto, notice, the lowest hell. I get down to hell. You got to go low. He says, it'll burn down to the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with their increase. Don't miss this. Notice, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. God says, when you get down to the foundation of the mountain, he said, you find the biggest mountain and dig down to the bottom, to the foundation of that mountain. You know what you're going to find? Hell. He said, I'm going to set on fire the foundations of the mountains. He said, they're going to dig into hell. He says, though they go to the lowest hell. I'm just trying to explain something to you. The Bible describes hell as being in the middle of the earth, in the center of the earth. It's a physical place. People physically go there. It's a place that actually exists. Go to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 15. If you can find the book of Psalms again, remember right in the center of your Bible, you got Psalms. I know we're looking at a lot of verses this morning, but I just want you to get the idea of how much God talks about the subject of hell. If you open your Bible, just right in the center, you got the book of Psalms. Right after Psalms, you got the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 15. Look at verse number 24. Proverbs 15 and verse number 24. Now do me a favor. When you get to Proverbs, keep your place there. We're going to leave it. We're going to come back to it. I've not been telling you that a lot, but we already saw the passage in Mark, so you don't have to keep your place there. You should have your place in Isaiah, and you should have your place in Proverbs. Proverbs 15, look at verse 24. Notice what the Bible says. Proverbs 15 and verse 24. The Bible says, the way of life is above to the wise, that he may depart, notice, from hell beneath. You see that? Where's hell? Beneath. Where's hell? Below. Where's hell? In the lower parts of the earth. In the nether parts of the earth. You can dig down into it. If you can get to the foundations of the mountain, you would find hell. That's what the Bible says. So we talked about the description of hell. And we talked about the duration of hell. And we talked about the depths of hell. Now let me just, for a second, and I don't want to confuse you, but let me just explain to you a little bit of theology, just so you understand something. Keep your place there in Proverbs, because we're going to come back to it. But go to the book of Revelation chapter 20. Again, should be fairly easy to find. Last book in the Bible. Revelation chapter 20. There is a difference between what the Bible calls hell and what the Bible calls the lake of fire. There are two separate locations. And I want you to just understand, the difference, just to answer any questions that someone might have. Hell, according to the Bible, is in the center of the earth. We just looked at a lot of verses about it being below, being beneath. And it's where your soul goes if you are an unbeliever before you are judged at what's called the great white throne judgment. See, when an unbeliever dies, no different than when a believer dies, their soul either goes to heaven or hell. Their body stays on this earth and is buried or is cremated or whatever they choose to do with it. All right? The souls of unbelievers go to hell. The souls of believers go to heaven. Their bodies stay on this earth until what's known as the great white throne. Let's look at it real quickly. Revelation chapter 20, look at verse number 11. Revelation chapter 20 and verse number 11. Now the great white throne is a judgment of unbelievers. Saved people do not get judged at the great white throne. The judgment of believers is what's known as the judgment seat of Christ. I've preached sermons on that before. You can look that up on our website if you'd like. Revelation 20:11 says this, and I saw a great white throne. That's why we call it the great white throne judgment. To him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heavens fled away, and there was found no place for them. Now I want you to notice, the day of the great white throne, the Bible tells us that it says that the earth and the heavens fled away, and there was found no place for them. Now that's important to understand, because here's what the Bible is saying. There's nowhere else to go. On the day of the great white throne, everyone will be present at this judgment. Everyone who has ever lived, whether saved or unsaved, we will all be there. Now, saved people will not be judged. We'll just be witnessing the event. Unbelievers will be judged at the great white throne. But you're not going to be off somewhere in your little condo in heaven. No. The Bible says the earth and the heavens fled away. Everyone will be at this judgment. You say, well, what happens? Look at verse 12. And I saw the dead, small and great, rich and poor, powerful or not powerful. He said, I saw the dead. Now, understand this. Believers are never called dead. Jesus said, he that believeth in me shall never die. Okay? So when he's talking about the dead, he's not referring to believers. He says, and I saw the dead, small and great, stand. You see that word stand? That's referring to the resurrection. You say, do unbelievers get resurrected? Yeah, they get resurrected. Because resurrection means that your body is brought back. You are erected back. And even the dead are resurrected. Notice verse 12. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. And the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which are written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead. This is talking about the bodies. There's a lot of dead bodies in the sea. And the sea gave up the dead, which were in it. And notice, death and hell delivered up the dead, which were in them. What is that referring to? Hell delivered up the souls. Death delivered up the bodies. You understand that? Just like you and I, one day, remember the glorified body? One day we're going to be resurrected, and our bodies will be brought back. They will be resurrected, and our souls will unite with our bodies in heaven with God at the rapture. One day there is a resurrection for unbelievers where hell will give up the souls and death will give up the bodies, and they will stand. Be resurrected before God. So what happened? Look at verse 12 again. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. And the books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the book according to their what? Works. See, all these unbelievers, all these Catholics and Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and Lutherans and Islam and whatever religion you want to name, who say we will go to heaven or we will go to eternity, and it'll be based on how we lived our lives. It's based on doing good things and repenting of your sins. And God says, hey, if you want to be judged by your works, I'll judge you by your works. You notice at the great white throne, he says, okay, you think you're going to make it to heaven? Let's see. Notice verse 13. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged, every man according to their works. Here's the problem with being judged by your works, is that the Bible says there is none that doeth good, no, not one. The Bible says that we all come short of the glory of God. See, no matter how good you are, you'll never be good enough. No, I mean, works you've got, you'll never have enough. But God says, hey, you want to be judged by your works? I'll judge you by your works. Notice verse 14. And by the way, they want to be judged by their works. In Matthew 7, they're yelling and they're saying, did we not prophesy in thy name? And in thy name cast out devils, and in thy name do many wonderful works. And he says, depart from me. He says, I never knew you. He says, you are workers of iniquity. So they're being judged for their works. Notice verse 14. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. Death is referring to their bodies. Hell is referring to their souls, and death and hell. But I want you to notice, the hell that's in the center of the earth will be taken one day and will be cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever is not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. See, hell and the lake of fire are two different places right now. And one day, after the judgment, after the great white throne, God's going to take hell, which is in the middle of the earth, which has all his souls of the unbelievers, and he's going to cast that into the lake of fire. He's going to throw it into the lake of fire. You say, well, where is the lake of fire? I'm glad you asked. Go to Matthew 22. Look at verse 13. Let's look at it quickly. Matthew 22, verse 13. Matthew 22, verse 13. Notice what the Bible says. Should be fairly easy to find. First book in the New Testament. Matthew